The campaign against the Vraxi Dominion lasted exactly 87 days. It was the most brutal military operation the galaxy had seen in over 1,000 years. Human ships led the assault, with Council forces following behind in what was supposed to be a joint operation. But within the first week it became clear this was a human war. Council vessels were used for logistics and support. The actual fighting was done by Earth's military, and they fought with a savagery that shocked their new allies. Admiral Hayuk commanded the operation from the carrier Indomitable. His strategy was simple: overwhelming force applied without mercy. Every Vraxi military installation was destroyed. Every warship was hunted down. Every fortification was reduced to rubble. The Vraxi tried to surrender after 3 weeks. Hayuk refused. "You don't get to surrender," he broadcast to their leadership. "You came to exterminate us. You showed no mercy when we begged for it. Now you'll learn what it's like to face an enemy who won't stop." General Min Ji-yoon led the ground forces. Human soldiers, supported by advanced armor and weapons that made Council observers flinch, swept through Vraxi territory like a storm. They didn't occupy. They didn't negotiate. They simply destroyed anything related to the Vraxi military and moved on. The Vraxi homeworld fell on day 43, not through invasion but through blockade. Human ships surrounded the planet and cut it off from all supplies. Within 2 weeks, the Vraxi government collapsed. Their military dissolved. Their empire crumbled. But the humans didn't stop. They hunted down every Vraxi ship that had participated in the attack on human colonies. They tracked down every commander who had given orders. They found them all. Captain Ji-won Park personally led the team that arrested General Croth, the Vraxi commander who had ordered the attack on Arcturus IV. She found him hiding in a bunker on a remote moon, protected by his last loyal soldiers. The firefight lasted 6 minutes. When it was over, Croth's guards were dead and he was in chains. "You can't do this," Croth protested as Ji-won dragged him to her ship. "I'm a military officer. I was following orders. There are rules about prisoners of war." Ji-won looked at him with empty eyes. "You're right. There are rules. The same rules you ignored when you bombed civilian shelters. Come on, you have a trial to attend." The war crimes trials were held on Earth in The Hague. The Galactic Council objected, saying such proceedings should be held at a neutral location. President Taeyeon Choi overruled them. "Our people died," she said firmly. "Our colonies burned. The trials happen on Earth or they don't happen at all." The council backed down. Thousands of Vraxi were tried. Most were convicted. The sentences ranged from life imprisonment to execution. The galaxy watched in horrified fascination as humanity demonstrated what they meant by accountability. "This is barbaric," Councillor Thalvin protested during one council session. "You're supposed to be civilized now, members of our alliance, yet you execute prisoners like savages." Ambassador Yuna Kim, now promoted to councillor representing Earth, responded coldly, "We execute war criminals. There's a difference. And perhaps if the council had acted when we first asked for help, none of this would have been necessary. But you didn't. So here we are." The Vraxi homeworld was placed under joint Earth Council supervision. Their weapons factories were dismantled. Their military academies were closed. A new government, carefully monitored, was installed with strict limitations on military force. It was occupation in all but name, and the Vraxi resented it bitterly. But they were in no position to resist. 3 months after the campaign ended, the Galactic Council held a formal session to discuss the new balance of power. Earth now had voting rights equal to the oldest species. More importantly, Earth had proven it could project military force anywhere in the galaxy. Dr. Mina Lee had been appointed as the first director of the Galactic Strategic Defense Network, a new organization created to coordinate rapid response to threats. It was headquartered on Earth's moon, and its staff was majority human. "This is Earth dictating terms to the entire galaxy," complained one counselor during a private meeting. "No," replied Envoy Krell tiredly. "This is Earth ensuring that what happened to them doesn't happen to anyone else." There's a difference, but not everyone on Earth was celebrating. Captain Ji-won Park had resigned her commission the day after General Croth was convicted. She couldn't stomach what humanity had become. She sat in a small cafe in Seoul, trying to process everything that had happened. A year ago, she had been a military officer protecting colonies. Now she was a veteran of a genocidal campaign. The Vraxi military had been completely destroyed. Their empire was gone. And humanity had done it all in the name of justice, but it felt like revenge. Commander Daiho Shin, the legendary Ghost Squadron leader, had also left the military. He had survived the war against all odds, but the cost had been too high. Too many friends dead. Too many missions that crossed lines he never thought he'd cross. He met Ji-won at that cafe. Neither had planned it, but they recognized each other immediately. "You too?" Daiho asked, sitting down without invitation. Ji-won nodded. "I can't do it anymore. Can't be that person. I know the feeling. They're calling us heroes, offering medals and promotions. But every time I close my eyes, I see the things we did. The Vraxi had families too, children. We killed them all." "They would have done the same to us," Ji-won said, but she sounded uncertain. "Probably, but since when did we measure ourselves by what our enemies would do? I thought we were supposed to be better." They sat in silence for a while, drinking coffee and watching the city go by. Life had returned to normal for most people. The war was over. Humanity had won. Everyone could go back to their lives, except for the ones who had done the fighting. Admiral Hyuk Cho was still in uniform, still serving, but he understood why people like Ji-won and Daiho had left. He had his own doubts, his own nightmares, but someone had to maintain the military that kept Earth safe. Someone had to be the guard dog. He met with Dr. Mina Lee in her new office on Luna. "We changed," Hyuk said quietly. "We became something different. Something harder." "We adapted," Mina corrected. "We survived. At what cost? 50,000 dead. Hundreds of thousands of Vraxi dead. And we've scared the entire galaxy into submission. Is that really a victory?" Mina looked at the Earth hanging in the lunar sky. Beautiful, blue, peaceful. "I don't know," she admitted. "But I know that next time someone calls for help, the galaxy will answer. I know that species like the Vraxi will think twice before attacking peaceful colonies. I know that humanity proved we can't be dismissed or ignored. Maybe that's not a complete victory. But it's something." The real test came 6 months later. A distress signal activated from an unknown species in the outer reach. They called themselves the Morani, and they were under attack by raiders. The response was immediate. The Galactic Council dispatched ships within hours. But Earth moved even faster. A human battle group arrived in the Morani system before the Council fleet, drove off the raiders, and began providing humanitarian aid. When the Council ships arrived, they found human medics treating Morani wounded, human engineers repairing damaged stations, and human soldiers patrolling to prevent further attacks. It was everything the Council should have done for Earth. Everything they had failed to do. The Morani were grateful beyond words. They asked to join the Council, and when asked why, their representative said, "Because any alliance that includes humanity is an alliance worth joining." "They came when we needed them." "That means everything." President Taeyeon Choi watched the news coverage from her office in Geneva. She was proud of what humanity had accomplished. Proud that they had kept their promise to ensure no species would face what Earth had faced. But she also worried. Power was a dangerous thing. Earth now had influence across the galaxy. They had military superiority. They had respect born of fear. She called a meeting with her closest advisors. "We need to be careful," she said. "We fought to change the galaxy, to make it more just. But we can't become the new tyrants. We can't let our power corrupt us." General Minji, who had been promoted to Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces, nodded. "I've been thinking about that. We should establish limits, rules we impose on ourselves. We have the power to conquer. We need to make sure we never use it." "The Never Again Accord," suggested Yuna, who had returned to Earth for the meeting. "A binding commitment. We pledge that humanity will always respond to distress calls, always protect the weak, and never use our military power for conquest." "Can we trust ourselves to keep that promise?" asked Dr. Mina. "We have to," Taeyeon said firmly. "Because if we don't, we become exactly what we destroyed." The Never Again Accord was presented to the Galactic Council 3 weeks later. It was a detailed document outlining humanity's commitment to peace and protection. It included limitations on Earth's military expansion, protocols for intervention in conflicts, and provisions for Council oversight. Most species were shocked. Earth was voluntarily limiting its own power. "Why would you do this?" asked Councillor Thalavan, genuinely confused. "You have the strength to dictate terms, to rule." "Because that's not who we are," Yuna replied. "We fought for the right to exist. The right to be heard. The right to protection. We didn't fight to rule over others. The Galactic Council chamber had never been this crowded. Every species had sent their highest-ranking representatives. Even species that normally avoided council politics had shown up. The reason was simple. Humanity had to be stopped. Envoy Krell stood at the center platform where Yuna had once stood begging for help. He was a Torvan, a species known for their diplomatic skills and silver tongues. For 300 years, Krell had negotiated treaties, ended wars, and brokered peace across the galaxy. He had never failed a mission. He was terrified he was about to fail this one. The proposal had taken 2 months to craft. The Council was offering Earth full membership, not just observer status. They were offering reparations totaling 10 trillion credits. They were offering technology transfers, trade agreements, and a permanent seat on the Council's executive board. It was more than any new species had ever been offered. Krell hoped it would be enough. The human delegation arrived exactly on time. Krell had expected diplomats, politicians, maybe President Taeyeon Choi herself. Instead, Admiral Hyuk Cho walked through the doors, flanked by Captain Ji-won Park. Both wore military uniforms. Both carried sidearms openly, despite weapons being forbidden in the council chamber. No one asked them to remove the weapons. Admiral Cho, Krell began, trying to keep his voice steady. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. The Galactic Council wishes to extend an offer of peace and partnership. Hyuk looked around the chamber, his eyes cold. The same chamber where you refused to help us? Where you told us we were on our own? Where you basically signed the death warrants of thousands of humans? That chamber? We made a mistake, Krell admitted. We failed to understand the severity of the situation. We failed to act when action was needed. We are here to make amends. Amens. Ji-won spoke for the first time, her voice sharp as broken glass. Do you know what I did for 3 days after the Battle of Arcturus IV? I floated in space in a damaged suit. My oxygen was almost gone. My ship was debris. And I watched Vraxi bombardments destroy the surface of the planet I was supposed to protect. I watched the colony burn. I watched the emergency broadcasts cut off one by one as the shelters were destroyed. She took a step forward. And do you know what else I watched? Council ships. 3 of them. They jumped into the system, scanned the battlefield, and jumped away. They didn't help. They didn't even acknowledge our distress signals. They just left. The chamber was absolutely silent. So forgive me if I'm not impressed by your amends, Ji-won finished. Krell felt sweat forming on his skin. This was going worse than he had feared. Captain Park, I understand your anger. But we are offering— I know what you're offering, Hyuk interrupted. Full membership, money, technology, it's all very generous. But you're not offering it because you care about humanity. You're offering it because you're scared of us. Can you blame us? Asked one of the counselors, a Penthari named Desh who had voted to help Earth. In 6 months, you've destroyed half the Vraxi fleet. You've attacked civilian shipping from 7 different species who traded with the Vraxi. You've declared entire sectors off limits and fired on anyone who enters. You're not acting like victims anymore. You're acting like conquerors. Hyuk turned to face him. And whose fault is that? You taught us that the galaxy doesn't care about justice or mercy. You taught us that strength is all that matters. We're just applying the lessons you provided. President Taeyeon Choi entered the chamber then, surprising everyone. She was a small woman in her 60s, with gray hair and a grandmother's gentle face. But when she spoke, her voice carried absolute authority. Gentlemen, please. We're here to negotiate, not to argue about the past. Envoy Krell, I've reviewed your proposal. It's generous, but it's also insufficient. Krell felt his stomach drop. Insufficient? Madam President, we're offering you everything a species could want. You're offering us the things you think we want, Taeyeon corrected. But you haven't addressed the fundamental problem. The Council's charter allows member species to refuse aid to non-members. It happened to us. What's to stop it from happening to the next species who calls for help? That was a unique situation, Krell began, but Taeyeon cut him off. No, it was a predictable situation. A small, weak species encountered a hostile power. The Council calculated that helping us wasn't worth the political cost. So you didn't help. Simple, rational, evil. She walked to the center platform and Krell stepped aside without thinking. Here are Earth's terms, Taeyeon said. First, the Council's charter is revised. Any distress call from any species, member or not, requires an immediate response. No debates, no votes. If someone is dying, you help them. Murmurs erupted around the chamber. What she was proposing would fundamentally change how the council operated. Second, Taeyeon continued, Earth maintains full military autonomy. We will not reduce our fleet size. We will not submit to weapons inspections. We will not limit our defensive capabilities ever. The council doesn't get a say in how we defend ourselves. That's a violation of council regulations, protested Councillor Thalvin. All member species must limit their military forces to prevent arms races. Then we won't be a member species, Taeyeon said simply. We'll continue doing exactly what we're doing now, except without the benefit of council trade or diplomacy. Is that what you want? Krell could see the calculations happening around the chamber. Earth was right. If they refused these terms, humanity would continue to operate outside council authority, and that was far more dangerous than having them inside the system even with conditions. Third, Taeyeon said, the Vraxi Dominion must be completely dismantled, not negotiated with, not contained, dismantled. Their military dissolved, their leadership tried for war crimes, their territory placed under council, supervision to ensure they never threaten anyone again. You're asking us to destroy an entire civilization, whispered. Krell, I'm asking you to do what you should have done when they started attacking peaceful colonies. I'm asking you to enforce consequences for genocide, unless you think genocide should go unpunished. General Minji Yoon, Earth's chief military strategist, spoke up from where she stood beside Hyuk. The council likes to talk about peace and civilization, but you maintain that peace by allowing strong species to bully weak ones, as long as they do it in unclaimed space. You call it diplomacy, we call it cowardice. And if we refuse your terms? Asked Thalvin coldly. Taeyeon met his eyes without flinching. Then we'll dismantle the Vraxi ourselves, and we'll remember who helped us and who didn't. The galaxy is a small place, Counselor. You might want to be on humanity's good side. It wasn't a threat. It was a simple statement of fact, and that made it more terrifying than any bluster could have been. Krell requested a recess. The council members needed to discuss this privately. As the humans left the chamber, he heard Jiwon say to Hyuk, Do you think they'll accept? They will, Hyuk replied, because the alternative is watching us burn the Vraxi homeworld to ash. And if we do that without council approval, it sets a precedent they really don't want. Hours passed. The debate in the council was fierce. Some species wanted to reject Earth's demands outright. Others, particularly those who had faced aggression themselves, saw the wisdom in what humanity proposed. The Pantheri delegation supported Earth completely. Finally, Krell emerged and requested the human delegation return. The council has reached a decision, he said formally. We accept your terms with one modification. Earth will be given a 5-year provisional membership. If you can demonstrate that you will abide by council laws and work within the system, the membership will become permanent. No, Taeyeon said flatly. Full membership immediately or no deal. Madam President, you must understand, I understand perfectly. You want to be able to kick us out if we become inconvenient? That's not acceptable. We either have equal standing or we walk. Krell looked around desperately at the council members. Finally, Desh spoke up. Give them full membership. Earth has proven they keep their word. When they say they'll dismantle the Vraxi, they mean it. When they say they'll help species in need, I believe they'll do that too. And frankly, we could use their honesty. This council has become too comfortable with pretty lies. The vote was called. It was close. 25 species voted yes. 20 species voted no. 2 abstained. Earth is now a full member of the Galactic Council, Krell announced, sounding exhausted. Taeyeon nodded. Then let's discuss how we're going to deal with the Vraxi. I assume you have military assets you can commit? Some, Krell admitted. But most member species have minimal military forces. Then you'll learn from us, General Minji said. Consider it part of the cultural exchange program. As the meeting continued into detailed planning for the campaign against the Vraxi, Jiwon pulled Hyuk aside. Do you think this will work? Can we really work with them after everything? Hyuk looked at the assembled counselors, arguing and debating and slowly coming to terms with humanity's place in their galaxy. I don't know, he admitted, but at least now when someone calls for help, they'll get it. That's worth something. And the Vraxi? They wanted to teach us how to wage war. We're going to teach them how wars end, completely permanently, with no ambiguity about who won. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Mars. The Vraxi had not returned to Earth's system, but that was because they no longer could. Human fleets had spread across the outer rim like a plague, hunting Vraxi ships wherever they found them. The predator had become the prey. Captain Sorahan commanded the Silent Fury, a stealth destroyer that represented humanity's new approach to warfare. The ship was painted black, covered in sensor-absorbing materials and equipped with engines that produced almost no heat signature. It could drift through space like a ghost, watching and waiting. Right now, it was watching a Vraxi supply convoy moving through the Kalaris sector. 3 transport ships, heavily loaded, accompanied by 2 escort frigates. Standard formation. They thought they were safe this far from human space. "Captain," said her tactical officer, a young man named Biom Park, "we have firing solutions on all 5 targets." Sora studied the display. The Vraxi ships were moving slowly, conserving fuel. They had no idea death was stalking them from the darkness. She felt nothing looking at them. No anger, no hatred, just cold professional calculation, fire, she said quietly. The Silent Fury came alive. Missiles streaked from their tubes, each one programmed to target a different ship. The Vraxi had 3 seconds of warning before the first impacts. It wasn't enough time to raise shields or return fire. It wasn't enough time to do anything except die. The transport ships exploded spectacularly, their cargo of weapons and ammunition detonating in chain reactions that lit up the void. The escort frigates tried to maneuver, tried to locate their attacker, but more missiles were already inbound. Within 2 minutes, all 5 Vraxi ships were debris. "Transmit the recording to all known Vraxi channels," Sora ordered. Standard message. Biom activated the broadcast. The footage showed the attack from multiple angles, making it clear how helpless the Vraxi had been. And then came the message in the Vraxi language spoken by a computer voice. "This is what happens when you attack humanity. This is what happens when you show no mercy. We learned from you. We learned well. It was psychological warfare at its most basic. Every attack was recorded. Every kill was broadcast. The Vraxi were learning to fear empty space, to suspect that every shadow might hide a human ship waiting to strike. But the Silent Fury was just one ship. There were dozens more like it, and hundreds of conventional warships, all operating with the same mission: make the Vraxi suffer. On a planet called Vracon Prime, in the heart of Vraxi territory, military commanders gathered in emergency session. The situation was becoming critical. Their supply lines were collapsing. Ships were afraid to leave port. The humans were everywhere, striking without warning, disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. "How is this possible?" demanded General Croth, slamming his armored fist on the table. "They're primitives. They barely have faster-than-light technology. How are they doing this to us?" His intelligence officer, a smaller Vraxi named Tech, brought up a holographic display. "We've been analyzing human tactics and biology. We've discovered several disturbing facts. First, humans can withstand much higher G-forces than we can. This allows them to perform maneuvers that would kill our pilots." The display showed footage of a human fighter craft performing an impossible turn, pulling at least 12 Gs. The Vraxi in the room hissed in discomfort. Such acceleration would rupture their internal organs. "Second," Tech continued, "humans have an unusual capacity for sacrifice. They will deliberately crash damaged ships into our vessels rather than retreat. They view death in combat as honorable. It makes them unpredictable and extremely dangerous. Third, and most concerning, is their psychology. We believed they would sue for peace after the first engagement. Instead, they intensified their attacks. Our psychologists believe this is because we attacked their civilians. Humans have a concept called total war, where they mobilize their entire society for combat. They don't distinguish between military and civilian production anymore. Everything serves the war effort." General Croth felt something he had never experienced before in his 40 years of military service. Fear. Real, genuine fear. "What do you recommend?" "Immediate withdrawal from all contested space. Open negotiations. Offer reparations. Before they decide to attack our homeworld directly." "Never," Croth roared. "The Vraxi Dominion does not retreat. We will gather our full fleet and crush them once and for all." In Earth's orbit, pilot Junho Nam was preparing for another sortie. At 24 years old, he was already a legend. His fighter craft, painted with 47 kill marks, sat in the hangar bay of the carrier Retribution. His ground crew had nicknamed him the Reaper, because every time he launched, Vraxi ships died. Junho didn't particularly like the nickname, but he understood why they used it. He was good at killing. Really good. He had a natural talent for three-dimensional combat, an instinct for where enemy ships would be, and absolutely zero fear of death. That last part worried his squadron commander, but Junho saw it as an advantage. The Vraxi feared death. He didn't. That made all the difference in combat. "Hey, Reaper," called his wingman, a pilot named Hana Song. "You ready for this?" "Always," Junho replied, climbing into his cockpit. "What's the target?" "Vraxi Patrol Group. 6 fighters. They've been harassing our mining operations in the Deneb system. Command wants them gone, 6 against 2. The Vraxi would consider those good odds. They were wrong. The engagement lasted 4 minutes. Juno's fighter moved through space like a dancer, rolling and spinning at velocities that made normal pilots black out. He destroyed 3 Vraxi fighters personally. Hana got 2. The 6th one tried to run and made it almost a full light second before Junho's missiles caught up with it. Back on the carrier, Junho's kill count went up to 53. The youngest pilot to ever reach 50 in human history. But while pilots like Junho were winning the battles in space, someone else was winning the war in the shadows. Intelligence officer Haeun Bae had never fired a shot in combat. She didn't need to. Her weapon was information, and she wielded it like a scalpel. Haeun sat in a dark room filled with monitors watching feeds from 1,000 different sources, intercepted Vraxi communications, spy satellites, human agents operating deep in enemy territory. She saw everything, heard everything, and used it all. Her latest project was particularly effective. She had compiled footage of human resilience and endurance, editing it into a presentation that she broadcast on every frequency the Vraxi used. Soldiers continuing to fight with injuries that should have been fatal. Civilians volunteering for suicide missions. Entire populations willing to be martyrs for the cause. The Vraxi found it horrifying. Their culture valued survival and self-preservation. The idea of deliberately sacrificing oneself was alien to them. They couldn't understand an enemy that embraced death. Yin smiled as she watched Vraxi military channels erupt in panic. Fear was spreading through their ranks like a virus. Ships were refusing orders. Crews were deserting. The Vraxi military machine was starting to crack. She typed up a report for Admiral Hayek. Morale damage to enemy forces estimated at 60% effectiveness. Recommend continuing current psychological warfare operations. Also recommend preparing for possible Vraxi delegation seeking peace terms. At the Galactic Council Station, Ambassador Yuna Kim received an unexpected visitor. A Vraxi diplomat, escorted by Council security, requested an emergency meeting. Yuna almost refused. The sight of a Vraxi still made her hands shake with rage. But she was curious. What could they possibly want? The Vraxi, whose name translated roughly as Speaker for Peace, entered her office looking nervous. Good. He should be nervous. Ambassador Kim, he began, his translator rendering his clicking speech into English. I come on behalf of the Vraxi Dominion with a request. We wish to negotiate a ceasefire. Yuna stared at him for a long moment. Then she started laughing. It was a harsh, bitter sound that made the Vraxi flinch. A ceasefire? You murdered thousands of our people. You destroyed our colonies. You came to exterminate us. And now you want peace because we're winning? We did not understand what we were facing. We thought humans were weak. We were wrong. Please, the killing must stop. Our people are terrified. Your ships are everywhere. You're slaughtering us. Yes, Yuna said coldly. We learned from you. You showed us how to wage war without mercy. We're excellent students. The Vraxi diplomat was shaking now. What do you want? Reparations? Territory? We'll give you anything. Just please stop the attacks. Yuna leaned back in her chair. 6 months ago, she had stood in the council chamber begging for help. Now the Vraxi were begging her. The irony was not lost on her. I'll forward your request to Earth. But I should warn you, the people you're fighting now are not the same ones who asked the council for help. We've changed. You changed us. Whether we can change back, she shrugged. I honestly don't know. After the Vraxi left, Yuna sent a message to Earth. She knew what the response would be, but protocol required her to ask. Admiral Hayek's reply came within an hour. Tell them no. We're not done yet. Not even close. The hunt continued. Human ships pushed deeper into Vraxi space. Entire Vraxi colonies went dark. their populations evacuated in panic before the humans could arrive. The emergency council room was buried 3 kilometers beneath the surface of Geneva, Switzerland. It had been built during the nuclear tensions of the 21st century and updated when humanity first detected signs of intelligent alien life. Now it served its true purpose. Admiral Hugo stood at the head of the long table, his uniform crisp despite having been awake for 36 hours straight. Around him sat the military commanders of every major nation on Earth, along with representatives from the colonies. The air was thick with tension and cigarette smoke. Someone had disabled the ventilation sensors, deciding that stress relief was more important than regulations. "Let me make this clear," Hayek said, his voice cutting through the murmured conversations. "The Galactic Council will not help us. Ambassador Kim's message confirms what we already suspected. We are alone. The Vraxi Dominion has destroyed 3 of our colonies and is currently moving through our outer defense perimeter. Intelligence estimates they will reach Mars in 7 months. He pulled up a holographic display showing the Vraxi fleet. It was massive. Over 200 warships, each one larger than anything in Earth's navy. Support vessels numbered in the thousands. It was an invasion force designed to overwhelm through sheer numbers and firepower. Our entire defense fleet consists of 42 combat-capable ships, continued a Chinese general named Liu Wei. We're outnumbered 5 to 1, and their technology is superior. This isn't a battle, it's an execution. Then we need to change the game, said a woman's voice from the far end of the table. Everyone turned. Dr. Mina Lee had been sitting quietly, reviewing data on her tablet. She was the Director of Human Strategic Command, a position that most people didn't even know existed until 6 months ago. She was young for such responsibility, only 37, but her eyes held a weight that made her seem much older. "Dr. Lee," Hyuk acknowledged, "you have something to contribute?" Mina stood and walked to the display. She entered a code and the hologram changed. Now it showed Earth's military infrastructure, but with layers that most of the people in the room had never seen before. Hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt, weapons facilities on the dark side of the moon, manufacturing plants buried in the ice of Europa. For the past 20 years since we first detected alien radio signals, a small group of us have been preparing for exactly this scenario. We called it the contingency protocol. The assumption was simple. If we ever encountered hostile alien life, we would be outmatched technologically. So we couldn't fight fair. We had to fight dirty. She pulled up another display. This one showed weapon designs that made several generals lean forward with interest. Kinetic kill vehicles using asteroid cores, radiation weapons that violate every galactic convention, biological agents, nanite swarms, everything the Council banned because it's too dangerous, too unpredictable, too cruel. We've been building them in secret for 2 decades. "That's insane," breathed the British admiral. "If the Council found out, they would have quarantined our entire system." "Yes," Mina agreed, "which is why we kept it secret. But the Council has shown their true colors. They'll let us die rather than risk upsetting their precious balance of power. So now we activate Protocol Exodus." Hayek looked at her steadily. "Explain what that means in practical terms." "Total war mobilization. Every factory on Earth converts to weapons production. Every civilian ship gets armed. Every person between 18 and 45 gets drafted and trained. We turn our entire civilization into a war machine. We've been running simulations for years. With full mobilization, we can increase our fleet size by a factor of 10 within 6 months." "That's impossible," someone objected. "The logistics alone are already planned," Mina interrupted. "Do you think we've been wasting time? We have the blueprints. We have the materials stockpiled. We have training programs ready to deploy. The only thing we didn't have was authorization. Now we need it." The room erupted in arguments. Some supported the plan. Others called it madness. A few questioned whether humanity should even fight, suggesting surrender or negotiation instead. Hugh let them argue for exactly 5 minutes. Then he slammed his hand on the table hard enough to crack the wood. "Enough. We've all seen the footage from the colonies. The Vraxi don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They exterminate. So our choice is simple. We fight with everything we have or we die as a species. I'm voting to activate Protocol Exodus. Who's with me?" Every hand in the room went up. 3 months later, the Vraxi advance fleet entered the Sol system. They had crushed the last colonial resistance and now expected to find Earth defended by a few dozen primitive ships. What they found instead shocked them. Earth's orbit was surrounded by defense platforms, hundreds of them bristling with weapons. The asteroid belt had been transformed into a minefield, with autonomous hunter-killer drones patrolling between the rocks, and the human fleet had grown. It wasn't 42 ships anymore. It was over 300, with more launching every day. The Vraxi commander, a veteran of a dozen successful invasions, studied the scans with growing unease. This was wrong. Intelligence had said the humans were weak, unprepared. This looked like a fortress. He ordered the attack anyway. His fleet was still larger, still more advanced. The humans were bluffing, trying to scare him off. It wouldn't work. The Battle of Mars would later be studied in military academies across the galaxy as an example of unconventional warfare at its finest. The human ships didn't fight like the Vraxi expected. They didn't form neat battle lines or engage in traditional ship-to-ship combat. Instead, they swarmed. Small craft, barely larger than fighters, attacked in waves of hundreds. They targeted the Vraxi ships' sensor arrays, their communication systems, their maneuvering thrusters. They didn't try to destroy the big ships directly. They blinded them, deafened them, crippled them, and then the heavy human vessels moved in, targeting the disabled ships at point-blank range. Commander Deho Shin led the Ghost Squadron, Earth's elite unit. His specialty was suicide runs. Not literally, although the casualty rate was high. His pilots would accelerate their ships to maximum velocity, kill the engines, and drift on momentum toward Vraxi vessels. Without active engines, they were almost invisible to sensors. By the time the Vraxi detected them, it was too late. Deho's personal kill count reached 7 Vraxi destroyers in the first hour of combat. He would wait until the last possible moment, then fire every weapon at once before pulling away. Half the time, his ship was damaged so badly he had to eject. But it worked. The Vraxi had never encountered an enemy willing to trade lives so freely for tactical advantage. The humans also used weapons that made the Vraxi recoil in horror. Dirty nuclear bombs that scattered radioactive material across vast areas of space. Kinetic impactors that punched through shields with pure mass and velocity. Nanite clouds that ate through hull plating like acid. But the worst was the psychological warfare. Every human ship broadcast on all frequencies. They showed footage of the destroyed colonies. They showed the bodies of children. And they made promises. Graphic, detailed promises about what humanity would do to the Vraxi homeworld once this was over. The Vraxi had expected fear. They found rage instead. The battle lasted 14 hours. When it was over, the Vraxi had lost almost half their invasion fleet. The survivors retreated in disarray, their formation broken, their morale shattered. They had never lost before. They had never even been seriously challenged. Earth's fleet had taken heavy casualties too. Over 100 ships destroyed. Thousands dead. But they had won. They had actually won. Admiral Hugh stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the Vraxi fleet jump to faster-than-light speed and flee the system. Around him, his crew was cheering, hugging each other, crying with relief. But Hugh didn't celebrate. He knew this was just the beginning. The Vraxi would return with reinforcements, and next time, they would be prepared for human tactics. He opened a channel to Dr. Mina Lee, who was coordinating from Earth. "Doctor, we need to accelerate production, double it if possible, and start working on those planet-killer weapons we discussed. If they come back, I want the ability to take the fight to their territory. Already in progress, Admiral. But there's something else we need to discuss." The Galactic Council sent a message. They're demanding we cease all military production and submit to an inspection. They claim we're violating weapons treaties. Hayek laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound. "Tell them we'll submit to inspections when they submit to helping species who call for aid. Until then, they can watch from a distance." He opened another channel, this one directed at the Galactic Council's nearest monitoring station. "This is Admiral Hugh Cho of the United Earth Defense Forces. You abandoned us when we asked for help. You told us we were on our own. Fine, we'll remember that. And when the Vraxi are nothing but dust, we'll remember who our friends were. Spoiler, it wasn't you." He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. "Set course for the outer colonies. We're going hunting. Any Vraxi ship we find between here and their territory gets destroyed. No mercy, no prisoners. We're going to teach the galaxy what happens when you attack humanity." The chamber was vast and circular. built from materials that shimmered with a faint blue glow. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated sections, their forms ranging from the insectoid to the aquatic to the purely energy-based. This was the Galactic Council, the governing body that had maintained peace across known space for over 3,000 years. Yuna Kim stood at the center platform, her small human frame dwarfed by the massive architecture around her. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the data crystal, but her voice remained steady. She had been Earth's ambassador for 2 years now, ever since humanity had achieved faster-than-light travel and made first contact with the wider galaxy. In those 2 years, she had learned that Earth was considered insignificant, primitive, barely worth noticing. "Honorable Council members," Yuna began, her words translated simultaneously into dozens of languages by the Chamber's systems. "I come before you with an urgent request. 3 of humanity's outer colonies have been attacked by the Vraxi Dominion. Thousands are dead. The survivors are trapped and the Vraxi fleet is moving toward our core systems. We need help." She activated the crystal. Holographic images filled the air above her. Burning settlements, bodies floating in the void of space, children crying in makeshift shelters. The final transmission from the colony on New Geneva showed Vraxi soldiers, tall and armored in black exoskeletons, executing civilians in the streets. The chamber remained silent. Yuna searched the faces around her, looking for any sign of sympathy or concern. She found none. Councillor Thalvin, a being that resembled a large reptile with silver scales, was the first to speak. His voice was cool and measured. "Ambassador Kim, the Galactic Council sympathizes with your situation. However, we must consider several factors. First, Earth is not a member species. You have observer status only. Second, the Vraxi Dominion, while aggressive, operates within the Outer Rim territories. They have not violated any council borders. Third, and most importantly, intervention would require military action, which our charter explicitly forbids except in cases of direct threats to member worlds." Yuna felt her chest tighten. "But they're killing us. They're wiping out entire colonies. How is that not a threat?" Another councillor spoke, this one a floating mass of tentacles surrounded by a water sphere. "The galaxy is large, Ambassador. Conflicts occur. The Council cannot intervene in every border dispute or territorial expansion. We must maintain our neutrality." "This isn't a border dispute," Yuna's voice rose, echoing in the chamber. "This is genocide. We asked for help, and you're debating semantics while people die." Thalvin's eyes narrowed. "Control yourself, Ambassador. Emotional outbursts will not change the reality of your situation. Earth chose to expand into contested space. You encountered a hostile species. These are the consequences of your actions." Yuna wanted to scream. She wanted to tell them that humanity had followed every rule, every guideline the Council had provided. The colonies were established in empty systems far from any claimed territory. The Vraxi had come without warning, without demands, without any attempt at communication. They had simply arrived and started killing, but she knew it wouldn't matter. She could see it in their faces, in their body language, in the way they had already started murmuring among themselves. Earth was unimportant. Humanity was expendable. "I'm asking you to reconsider," Yuna said quietly. "Please, we're not asking for much. Just some military support, some protection until we can evacuate the remaining colonies." The vote was called. Of the 47 species present, 43 voted against intervention. 3 abstained. Only 1 voted in favor, a young species called the Pentheri who had faced similar aggression decades ago and remembered what it felt like to be alone. The decision was final. Earth would receive no help. Yuna stood alone on the platform as the councillors filed out, already discussing other matters, already forgetting about the small blue planet and its desperate people. She felt numb, empty. She had failed. Her communication device buzzed. It was a priority message from Earth, from someone using military encryption. She stepped into a private chamber and activated the screen. Captain Jiwon Park appeared before her. The woman's face was covered in ash and dried blood. Behind her, Yuna could see the interior of a ship's bridge, damaged and barely functional. Sparks flew from exposed wiring. "Emergency lights cast everything in red, Ambassador," Jiwon said, her voice hoarse. "I'm commander of the Defiant Hope. We're the last ship defending the colony on Arcturus 4. The Vraxi broke through our lines 3 hours ago. They're landing ground forces now. Yuna's throat felt tight. Captain, The council voted against helping us. I'm sorry. I tried everything. Ji-won closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, they were hard, determined. I understand. Tell me honestly, Ambassador, will they help us at all? Even if the Vraxi reach Earth itself? Yuna thought about the cold faces in the council chamber. The casual dismissal. The bureaucratic indifference. No, she whispered. I don't think they will. Then we're on our own. Ji-won looked off screen, listening to someone shouting orders. The Vraxi fleet is massive, Ambassador. Bigger than anything we've seen before. Our intelligence suggests they're not just here to take territory. They're here to wipe us out completely, and after studying their movements, we believe Earth is their final target. How long do we have? 6 months. Maybe 8 if we can slow them down. But Ambassador, you need to understand something. The Council thinks we're primitive, weak. They think we'll just roll over and die quietly. Ji-won leaned closer to the camera, and for the first time, Yuna saw something frightening in her expression. They're wrong. Humanity doesn't die quietly. The transmission shook violently. Alarms blared in the background. They've breached the hull, someone shouted on Ji-won's ship. All hands prepare for boarding action. Ji-won drew a pistol from her belt. I have to go, Ambassador. Tell Earth what happened here. Tell them the Council abandoned us. And tell them, she paused, choosing her words carefully. Tell them to do whatever it takes to survive. Whatever it takes. The rules don't matter anymore. The screen went black. Yuna sat in the silence of the empty chamber. Her hands were shaking again, but not from nervousness this time. She activated her emergency channel to Earth and began recording. This is Ambassador Yuna Kim. The Galactic Council has refused our request for aid. Captain Ji-won Park of the Defiant Hope reports that the Vraxi fleet is advancing toward Earth. Estimated arrival in 6 to 8 months. The Council will not intervene even if Earth itself is attacked. She paused, thinking about Ji-won's final words. The captain's last message was clear. We're on our own. Do whatever it takes to survive. Protocol Exodus is recommended. Kim out. She sent the message and sat back, staring at the beautiful architecture of the council chamber. This place represented thousands of years of civilization, of peace, of diplomacy. It was supposed to be humanity's gateway to the stars. Their welcome into a community of advanced species. Instead, it had become their tomb. But as Yuna gathered her things and prepared to return to Earth, she felt something stirring inside her. Not despair, not fear. Something darker and more dangerous. The galaxy had just taught humanity a valuable lesson. When you're alone in the dark, you can't rely on anyone but yourself. And humanity was about to become a very dedicated student.